Ahoy, here I am again to give everybody some extra context on recent news and climate extremes. So, this has been kind of making the rounds lately. It's another Jacobson tweet noting a temperature anomaly, global temperature anomaly at the 2 meter surface temperature. That's air temperature. That is, over 2 degrees, just barely over 2 degrees Celsius above the IPCC baseline. Now, if we look at what that is like when we kind of look at our climate reanalyzer thing, that was happening back here. Here it says the anomaly is only 1.3 C, but also consider that we're looking at a different baseline, and that here we're based on the 1979 to 2000 mean, which is a much higher baseline than the one that the IPCC is using that you see here, because here we're talking like 1850 to 1900. That's going to be considerably cooler than 1979 to 2000. So, what does this mean when we see, red line skyrocketing? It should be, raising alarms. Sure, that's understandable. But we're looking at this, we're thinking, okay, so that's 2 degrees like warmer across the whole globe, right? That seems like everything is hot everywhere. It seems like we've passed some critical point. And it is a significant event, but again, there's more to the story, there's more context to it. And so, like, for example, this is just today's 2 meter air temperature anomaly. And it shows, okay, so really quite a bit hotter than normal in some places, a bit cooler than normal in some places. Super high Arctic is cooler than normal. Scandinavia is cooler than normal. We've got some Central Asia here, warmer than normal. Massive anomaly here in Antarctica. And it also nicely summarizes, what we're looking at, like as far as departure from normal in the different regions. So we have, our biggest anomaly here is in the Arctic and the Antarctic, where we've got, quite a bit warmer than normal in both areas, whereas a lot of the temperate regions are kind of maybe a little warmer, a little cooler, but not such extreme anomalies. So when we take this into consideration, we note, and this is just something that I personally note because I look at this a lot. I look at this on a very regular basis, sometimes daily, and I note that the only times you see the most extreme anomalies are only when, I'm not going to say only when, but largely when we have a larger than normal anomaly in the Antarctic. So if we look at our most recent one and we scroll down to see, okay, November 17th, what kind of anomaly were we looking at in Antarctica? Okay, quite a bit normal, quite a bit, much more than normal, I should say. And when we look at the actual air temperature map, we can see, okay, so temperatures are still quite cold and generally below freezing. So being above normal to such a degree doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's still well below freezing. We might get a little tiny bit of melting along the fringe here, but again, it's also very late spring in the Antarctic, so that's not going to be such a big deal. So if we look at any of these super anomalies, we'll see that the unifying feature of all of these super anomalies is when Antarctica is much warmer than normal. But let's look at this one from August 25th, and let's look at the actual air temperature map. Again, this color here, this really light kind of turquoise, is where we have freezing temperatures. So still everything here is below freezing. Whereas if we look at the where was that, August 25th anomaly, come on, there we go, of 0.9 C above the 1979 to 2000 mean. Like, that's a big global anomaly, but the bulk of it is happening right here. So it really maybe didn't, it was actually quite, cooler than normal across a lot of the temperature regions of the globe. So it feels almost as if Antarctica skews things, because if we take a look, let's go, when we have like a big change, like let's look at July 1st, where it's not really quite as anomalous as it is a few days later. So let's look at July 1st in Antarctica. It's a little cooler than normal in general. Then we go up to, like, from there, it kind of skyrockets in terms of the anomaly, right? And then we look at July 4th here, and what do we have? We have a largely in the temperatures in Antarctica. So we have this I'm not going to say outsized influence, but I'm going to say that when we are just looking at anomalies, that Antarctica has a tremendous influence on whether our anomaly is going to be like here or up here, right? And this is like here, that's a difference of zero point 0.4 degrees Celsius within a week. And that's largely because we had an Antarctic heat wave, like from there to there, that we get an Antarctic heat wave. And let's like click on that date. Where is that? July 4th. So we're looking at July 4th. We've got kind of a couple of regional heat anomalies here in Antarctica. But again, if we look at the actual temperature map, it's still, dark and wintry there. And we've got temperatures that are largely below freezing. So this is something that I wanted to mention just because, again, I don't like seeing people freak out. And when people see things like this, they freak out, not realizing that a bulk of this is because of an Antarctic heat wave. And despite that being an Antarctic heat wave that we're getting reported on here, despite that being an Antarctic heat wave, it's still not creating really any significant new melting in Antarctica. Right? So it's like, not that necessarily that the heat is lost, but that it doesn't really have the effect that you might think it has globally when you look at this line. Because largely that's a heat wave here, still generally below freezing here. But what happens when we start to get these heat waves during the Antarctic summer, when these above freezing temperatures, which really aren't quite hitting at this point, but let's say they start to come closer in from the coastline of Antarctica. Well, yes, we're going to see a little bit more melting along the Antarctic fringes. We're going to see, glaciers receding, that kind of thing. So these kinds of Antarctic anomalies, when they occur during the Antarctic winter, like these times of years, like July, August, that's June, July, August, it's really cold and dark in Antarctica, right? When we start seeing Antarctic anomalies during Antarctic summer, we will see more melting, which obviously is going to result in a little bit more of sea level rise. But I just wanted to point this out because a lot of people don't really check this on a daily basis. They don't really kind of check to see which regions are having the greatest influence. But I thought it would be worth pointing out that anytime you see the largest anomalies, guarantee you click on it. And I love that the Climate Reanalyzer will allow you to click on it and see not just the temperature map, but the temperature anomaly map. You can see all of the largest anomalies are associated with Antarctic heat waves. So that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's also not necessarily what you might think is happening when you see this, because this is not necessarily representative of a global anomaly. Rather, it's a outsized regional anomaly that is bringing up the whole global average. So again, just a little bit of extra context. I thought it might be helpful for some people. Does it mean that this is nothing to worry about? Of course not. This is definitely not a good thing, but it's also not what you might think when you just look at a red line on a graph. So again, here I am just adding some extra context to something that's making a lot of news. And as always, my end line, my tag, my mantra, whatever you want to call it, is like, yes, bad, but not necessarily in the way you might think. So in other words, yes, let's not lose hope. Let's take action. Let's, be our best selves. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.